Well, to talk about this, we're now joined in studio by Vina Nadjibulla. Vina is a foreign policy expert and serves as Vice President for Research and Strategy at the Asia-Pacific Foundation of Canada. Vina, nice seeing you face to face. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Michael.
So here we have the Prime Minister, and by his own admission, he is in Asia right now looking to diversify partnerships. It begins with ASEAN and in Kuala Lumpur. But just how interested are Southeast Asian countries in trade with Canada?
Absolutely. So this is a big trip. It's his first trip to Asia, and he has set an ambitious goal of doubling non-U.S. exports in 10 years. And there's no way mathematically for us to do that without doing a lot more with Southeast Asia, so ASEAN, as well as obviously Japan, Korea, China, India, and others. But we're not the only ones who are trying to diversify our economies. Everybody else is trying to do the same, and Southeast Asia has many suitors. It's the most dynamic part of the world in terms of its economic growth, in terms of the rise of its middle class. 667 million people. Many of them are interested in the kinds of things that Canada offers, so energy, food, investments. So I think we have a good shot in terms of how interested is Southeast Asia. That's also the case given that they are negotiating a free trade agreement with us. So ASEAN as a bloc has chosen Canada for a free trade agreement negotiation. That's really positive. Prime Minister Carney made a big push to finalize that as soon as possible, so early next year. Remember, we also have an agreement now with Indonesia, so that was a big achievement, our first one in the region. And he also just committed to having an agreement with the Philippines around the same timeline as ASEAN. So in 6 months' time, we may end up with sort of 3 agreements in the region, plus the CPTPP. So a number of Southeast Asian countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei are already members of this trading bloc, which Canada belongs to as well.
Let me pick up on that point, though, because for me, it leads to a very fundamental question with Canada. Because you mentioned that we are part of the CPTPP, which is the Comprehensive Progressive Transit, whatever trade partnership. But we have been since, 2018, and yet here we still have the United States as our #1 trading partner. Yes. How do you ensure that all this positive talk, all these agreements signed, actually translate into trade and investment?
No, that's a fantastic question, and you're absolutely right. Just having the trade agreement isn't going to actually translate into trade. Governments sign trade agreements, but it's businesses that need to actually make the deals and need to engage in commerce. So we have to understand clearly what trade agreements are about. They are opening doors, but we still need businesses to walk through those doors, and we need a lot of enabling infrastructure. So for us to be able to get our products, energy, agricultural products into the global market, we need a lot more infrastructure here at home. So you're right, we're good at signing agreements, but we need to do a lot more now in actually being able to make them into reality. Because right now, only about 10% of our trade is with Asia.
Can that be achieved quickly, though, given the fact that Canada does face this existential threat with trade in the United States diminishing as it is because of tariffs? How quickly can that type of infrastructure be created to get trade flowing between Southeast Asia, and Canada?
Short answer is no. Of course, quickly is not going to happen. That's why I think the target is 10 years. But we have to start somewhere, and we have to really invest in that today. So there are some things that we can do immediately. Already with LNG Canada coming online, for instance, out of British Columbia, we are for the first time selling Canadian LNG in Asian markets. There's a ton of interest in doing more. Phase 2 of LNG Canada needs to be financed. So Prime Minister Carney was meeting in Malaysia with Petronas, the company out of Malaysia that is an investor in LNG Canada. And those discussions are relevant. Same thing with Singapore. Prime Minister is going there now. That's a big discussion point, is going to be investment into Canada. And again, he's put a number on it, 500 billion, which is not a small number. Obviously, but we need to start somewhere. It would have been good to start this 30 years ago. We've been in conversation about diversification for that long, but now it seems like the urgency is there, the opportunities are there, but we do have to be realistic. The goal is doubling non-U.S. trade, right? So maybe getting the U.S. dependence to about 50% rather than 76%.
Okay, so taking everything that you have said, first point, I believe that you're enthusiastic about this. Second point, though, the ball's in Canada's court. It seems to be what you're saying.
Yes. So I am enthusiastic in that for the first time there is a genuine crisis. There is an opportunity in this crisis for us to finally get serious about diversifying our partnerships, but to recognize that it's not just about agreements, it's not just about meetings, it's actually having the domestic infrastructure and competitiveness on the part of our companies to be able to truly go global. And one piece of that, Michael, is we need to have Asia competence. I mean, we do surveys at the Asia-Pacific Foundation where we see that most Canadians have very little understanding of Asia, right? I mean,
the Street report of last week.
Exactly, 90% know very little about Malaysia or Singapore. So in addition to having government involvement, we also need a whole of society effort and a change in our mindset. We've been so US and Europe focused for reasons of geography, of history, and that's completely understandable. But now our economic prosperity is going to be tied to how well we perform in the Indo-Pacific, which is the most dynamic economic region of the world, fastest growing. That's where innovation is happening. That's where a lot of the things that Canada produces are actually needed, right? So in terms of complementarities of the economies, Asia offers us a lot more.
Okay, well, we keep a very close eye on what's happening in Southeast Asia, and then later in the week there will be the APEC summit.
Yes.
So you know we're going to bug you about that.
And China meeting, of course.
Huge China meeting, which we'll talk about later this week. But for now, Vina, thank you for the time.
Thank you. My pleasure.